Hi, today I'm going to be walking you through the and the or function. These are very valuable functions when you're trying to analyze using multiple conditions, and I guarantee that you had a situation where you would have found value in using these functions. Now, there are multiple ways in how to use this function. However, the most valuable way that I often use it for is to tag each line of data to a specific criteria that I'm analyzing. I'm going to be showing you an example of this to provide insight in how these functions can be valuable and where you could potentially use it in your workspace as well. Now, before we actually get into the problem, let's quickly walk over what the and the or function is. Normally, when you set up for an if function, you specify a condition to test. So for example, let's say division equals operations. Now, this is just one condition that you're testing for. However, there are situations where you want to test for multiple conditions. For example, what if we only wanted to assess all the divisions that are operations where the vendors are Rogers? Without using the and the or function, you would have to use a nested if where you would specify divisions equals operations. And if so, you would have to specify another if function and constantly build it out in that manner. This is not very efficient as your formula will drag on to be very long and also difficult to understand and also lead to more errors. As a result, you want to be able to use the and the or function very efficiently. Another situation is that sometimes you want to analyze for a data where either or of the conditions need to be met. So for example, let's say that we're analyzing all the costs related to the tech division and all the costs related to the prod inc division. In this case, simply using the if function would be very difficult to achieve this. However, if you were to use the or function, this would be very easy attainable. Now that we have a general understanding of what these functions are, let's quickly go over an example so that you could better understand what these functions actually do and how they provide value. We have two deliverables here. The first is to calculate the total costs related to the tech operation. The way we want to identify that is all the costs under the tech division are related to tech, and all the costs under the infra LLC vendor are also related to tech. This could very well be a case in real life, as you would incur costs with a specific vendor under multiple divisions. However, the nature of the service could all be tech related. So in this case, we want to test for an either or condition where either the division is tech or the vendor's infra LLC to determine what the costs related to the tech operations are. So let's create another column. We're going to call this tech operation. And here we're going to set up a formula to assess whether the transaction refers to the tech operation. The way we're going to do this is if or the division equals tech or the vendor equals infra LLC. If this is met, then I wanted to return tech, otherwise blank. And when we check, we can see that all the transactions where either the division is tech or the vendor is infra LLC return the text of tech. So we can see even the transactions under finance that were for infra LLC was also tagged as tech. So then for deliverable number 1, we just have to use a SUMIFS where the tech operations equals tech. And we can see we spent roughly $199,000. Let's go over a second situation where we need to calculate the total cost related to marketing production. The way to identify this is that the division is marketing and the vendor is Production Inc. And again, as the name suggests, this is a very good way to identify a specific type of spend, as we know that all the spends with the vendor Production Inc. is meant for production, and if it was recognized under the marketing division, we know that it was for production for the marketing operation. So to determine this, let's quickly create another column called marketing production. And here we're going to specify the if function again. However, instead of using the or function, we now have to use the and function. And this is so because we can only identify marketing production cost only if it's under marketing division and it's under the Production Inc. vendor. So if the division equals marketing and the vendor equals Production Inc., then I wanted to return marketing prod, otherwise empty. So that we can see all the transactions that were under marketing and the Production Inc. vendor got tagged with the text of marketing production. So then we have to use a SUMIFS to calculate the total where all the marketing production matches the text of marketing prod. And we can see that we spent a total of $27,663 on marketing production. Now, if you were to do this without using the AND and OR function, it would be much more difficult as you would have to use a nested if and keep track of exactly what the functions are doing in each step. However, by using the AND and OR function, you're able to clearly specify your conditions and the combinations in a very clear and easy to understand manner. As I've mentioned, there are multiple ways to use the AND and OR function. However, this is most commonly used when you're trying to analyze specific lines of data on whether it meets a condition that you're testing for. This really helps simplify the ending formula where you're actually analyzing the result, and it helps clearly visualize exactly which data you're consolidating. So for example, later on, if you wanted to just audit your results, you can filter your helper column that you've built using the AND and the OR function to see that all the data that's being consolidated is correct. I hope this video helped you gain insight to how the AND and the OR function works, and in future videos I'm going to be covering case studies where you need to be building these helper indexes using the AND and OR function to efficiently solve problems. This file will be available on my website for download, so I do encourage you to try this out, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm going to be uploading more educational videos going forward, so follow for more.